So my name's Dr. Harriet Peterson. I do work at UWA. This tour that I'm on, which goes from Augusta to Esperance, has been funded by the state NRF and is hosted through the Albany Community Environment Centre. And over the last few years, I've been working. I started looking at plastic in birds, and that moved on to looking at plastic on the beaches. And then a couple of years ago, I came across an image which slightly horrified me, which I'm going to show you guys. And then I'm going to explain why that. So it's what's forecast to happen on our coast in the next 30 years. So I think we need to be prepared for that, and that's what this is primarily about.
Is that better?
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to talk mostly about what's expected to happen in the next 30 years. I'm going to talk a little bit about the citizen science. This is partly a shameless attempt to recruit volunteers to do some citizen science for me. And then I'm going to talk about frivolous, cryptic and dumb plastic. So that's just a step beyond single-use plastic. And it's really about decision making at the point of purchase and hopefully choosing not to buy or to choose to buy better quality or an alternative. And 3 different categories to look at. So I think it's important to start with what plastic actually means. Plastic just means animal. So we know that our brains are plastic. If you have a brain injury, it can change and adapt. Animals' behaviour is plastic. It changes to suit the environment. And my tour, I plan it as a straight line. In reality, I'm going to have to be flexible about how I run my trip, which is for most things that's what we do. But I'm really concentrating on plastic that is produced from oil, essentially. So we go and get our oil, it goes to the distillery, and they heat it up, and the gas fraction that comes off is gas. And then we get petrol, and then stuff called naphtha, kerosene, diesel, so it's getting heavier and heavier all the way down to when we get bitumen, which is the end product. So plastic comes from the naphtha fraction that comes off at 120 degrees. So that's where we get the materials to make plastic. And this is what comes out of the plant. These are nurdles. I suspect you're all reasonably familiar with nurdles. I'm going to let you have a close look at those. The black nurdles probably came from a spill on the Swan River in 2016, and they were collected on Hong Kong. So it's connected. That's what we think. They're chemically the same as the Fremantle ones. And of course, plastic. This is polyurethane. So we get ethylene furs, which get polymerized to form a chain, and you get these long chains, and that's what plastic is. And this is our consumption of plastic. So really, we've only been using plastic since the 1950s. And the history behind that is we started by using rubber. And the rubber was initially got from Brazil. The trees were out in the bush, so we used to go out and harvest it. The rubber barons were incredibly wealthy. And eventually an Englishman managed to export 70,000 seeds from Brazil, and they planted them in Southeast Asia. And of course they planted them in straight lines, so they could harvest more. So it was a very efficient way of extracting rubber. And in the 1800s, we developed other plastics, but they were all derived from natural products. So celluloid, so they replaced ivory with celluloid, the film industry happened. And everything was trundling along quite well. And then the Second World War happened. Japanese took over Southeast Asia, then they bombed the Americans at Pearl Harbor. 2 days after they bombed, the Americans decreed that you can't use rubber for anything but the war effort. So, for example, the Sherman tank weighs 20 tons, it has half a ton of rubber in it. And if your enemy now owns the rubber fields, you kind of have to start looking for something else. So that's when the search for synthetic plastics really began. And then after the Second World War, we learned all this stuff, so then we started making Tupperware and off we go. And we're just in love with this stuff. This is the fuel prices, and then you can see the GFC, the impact it has. So using that information, there's predictions of what will happen under different scenarios. So if we do nothing and keep increasing the amount of plastic we produce, and we're going to double it in 10 years, we're going to double the volume of plastic. But if we start, well, and depending on what we do to combat plastic, will alter the outcome. So to achieve the blue line, we really have to start really considering how we're going to manage plastic. And this is the map that's been burbling away in the back of my brain. So it's produced from modelling. It comes from papers by Ericsson and Le Breton, so they're leaders in this field. It's supported by UNESCO and UNEP and all the other big international organisations. And so it's macroplastics. The microplastics map is identical. We understand.
Sorry, one question. Is that square or is it cubic kilometers? Grams per. Is that square or cubic kilometers?
It's square.
Square kilometer.
Because it's generally on the surface. I mean, it does go through the water column, but the bulk is on the surface. So we get Southeast Asia and India. There's a lot of big population. They don't have waste management systems that are as good as ours. The Mediterranean, water flows into the Mediterranean at the surface, so that's what's in there gets trapped, basically. Gulf of Mexico, semi-enclosed body of water with a big river on it. And Hawaii, of course, is in the middle of the garbage patch. But what about us? So this is the prediction for 30 years. So it's saying that our coast is going to be as polluted as Southeast Asia. So I'm going to sort of build up the story as to why that might be true. It's also to get everyone thinking about how are we going to keep on top of it before we get really overwhelmed. And I think we can do smart things ultimately to keep harvesting that plastic out of our beaches. So this is one of the problems with plastic, and it's one of the reasons we like it, is it's durable. So it hangs around for a long, long time. But the KFC bag is estimated to be 40 years old. And the same with this stuff. So that was pulled out of the waterway in Queensland not too long ago. And you guys will all remember. So that was pulled out. Somebody, I thought it was Fremantle, but someone said it was Mindarie Keys not too long ago. So that's, for those of you who weren't here in 1979, that's West Australia's 150th celebration of European colonisation. And it's had a journey and been brought out of the harbour a few months ago. It's largely contained intact. It's durable, so it lasts, and it lasts. So unfortunately the video won't work on here. So I'm going to run this video off the internet. I think it's really important not to judge these people, because everything that's in the truck that we're about to see is also in our homes. So the only difference is we have a first world waste management system. So this is part of the problem. So I believe this is the Amazon. The commentary from the guy taking the film is quite interesting. much loose form. So that is, I mean, that's pretty awful. But you know, they're not using any products that we don't use. So it's about education for them. But for us, I think it's about setting an example of moving away from the products that would end up in those garbage bags, which I think we're doing anyway, but we probably need to, actually I'm probably talking to the converter. So this is, I'm going to show another video. So this was from Southeast Asia. I hope this was a flooding event. I don't really want to depress you, but I think these are so fantastic.
Wow.
A couple of basketballs that go down this creek. There you go. The fact that the people are out kind of tells me that this is an unusual event, but events like this can happen. This is really slow mouse. So that's plastic getting into rivers. But the United Nations has come up with this map and this statistic that 10 rivers carry 90% of the waste that's in the ocean. So we can see there's 2 rivers in India, the Indus, the Ganges, the Mekong, and the remaining rivers are in China. So, and of course, again with China, we get a lot of our products from China, so we kind of got to take a little bit of ownership of what's going on in China. So the proportions, so the big circle here is to represent the total amount of plastic in the ocean, and then you've got all the rivers around the outside there. Australia obviously contributes to that dot, and there's the Yangtze.
Wow.
Which almost disappears into the picture, so that's what they estimate comes out of all of those rivers. So there's a lot of plastic coming down rivers and then it gets into the ocean. But we actually know quite a lot about the ocean, and we've for 40 years or so we've been measuring the currents in the ocean, and we do that using drifters. So here's a drifter being delicately launched from a maritime facility. And there's thousands of these out in the ocean. They can stay at the surface, or they can go down to 1,000 metres, hang around for 10 days, and then they come back up to the surface. And they measure temperature and salinity. They talk to satellites to say, I'm here. So we do that. These are drifter tracks, individual drifter tracks. So you can see the star where it's being deployed. And then the orange means that it was deployed about 3 to 4 years ago, so that's fairly old data. And as you come across, the blue is the data that's much more recent. So you can see that drifters are going along just north of the circumpolar front, but it's also interacting with our coast. What we have over here is, this is a modelled outcome by a lady called Julia Ressa. She sampled all of these purple dots for plastic. Our dot was pretty good. There's still plastic there, but it was pretty good. And then she did a backtracking modelling exercise. So she used that spot. Where could the particles have come from given the currents and the weather? And I do that over and over again. So we can see very little coming around the corner in Lewin Current, and lots of paths coming up from the southwest. Yes, so this is not black. Sorry, it all worked fine earlier, but it doesn't work now. So this is a video of all the drifters that have been released. you'll see them moving and you'll see little batches of them being released together. There's 3 segments to this video. Thank you. So you can see little batches appearing. This is 1997. Now they're going to start, they eventually do decay and die. This is where they've all been deployed from. And when you see them all started together, you actually get to see how organised the ocean is. See how they move away from the equator? And eventually, so the drifters begin to die, but you can see the garbage patches form. Does everyone see that again? Yeah. This is on the internet, you can look this up whenever you like. Come on, let's go back. So this is the modelled one. I just have to go back to the beginning. Not playing ball for me. Well, now I've broken it. There we go. So you can, this is 87. See that little batch appear. And if you can pick out one dot, you might see it just going around in circles. That's it inside an eddy.
Are they on the surface?
These are at the surface, yes. But that just looks really untidy. You see how many they've actually deployed at the equator, and they move away from coasts, the west coasts of the continents because of the way the oceanography works. But our coast is a little different because of the moon current, and then you get the garbage patches.
Do they retrieve them and recycle them, or is there thousands floating out in the ocean?
No, just more debris.
Sand?
So this is a modelled outcome. So the other stuff is based on real data. This is all done as virtual particles in a computer. And what I find slightly horrifying is this line flows along our coast. And when you look at a map, basically our coast is the only one that runs east-west. All the others are north-south. I mean, the north of Russia, I guess, but that's frozen most of the time. But we've got that east-west component, and it's just at the right latitude for that line coming across the Indian Ocean. So I think that's basically the cause of the problem that we're likely to have. So we've got currents which we know how they're going to flow, but we've also begun to collect quite a bit of data from the ocean. So this particular plot is put together by National Geographic. And it's a summary of all the data from the ocean. So that's the rings. The yellow is the amount of plastic coming out of rivers. And the lighter blue on land, that's an indication of reduced waste management. So we're not doing too badly, except of course when you start looking at our cities, immediately around our cities, it's not very good. Can you push the door Perth does. So here's the Pacific garbage patch. Obviously huge quantities up there. In fact, there's a lot of fishing nets up there. There was a study done a couple of years ago, a really big study. They brought in aircraft, so they photographed the ocean, and they could actually pick out fishing nets in the ocean. They had some research vessels. They also had yachts that had raced to Hawaii. On the return trip, basically all the yachts were surveying the ocean for plastic as well. So the garbage patch has been fairly well sampled. We can see, there's not a lot, but there's still plastic here. We haven't got a lot of sample points around us. It's not too bad. There's not a lot of points over in the Indian Ocean garbage patch, and there's now an idea that, in fact, there isn't a garbage patch in the Indian Ocean. But I think... Right, so I've come back to this map because I wanted to, everything I've shown you is it's all coming down the rivers, and then we get that global circulation which is bringing plastic to our coast. So that's the forecast for 30 years. Models can be wrong, and they will be improved over time as we get more information, so hopefully they're wrong, but I think we need to work towards how we can change the problem. Recently bumped into the guys who are doing biomass fuel electricity generation. It occurs to me that if we're having all this plastic resource coming to our coast, we could actually use that as biomass in industrial incinerators to generate electricity, which would be a good way of providing electricity and getting rid of the waste. That does burning it at very high temperatures, not what we see people doing in their backyards, so we'd have to have a really big thought process around that. And where would you put the incinerator, of course? So I get out and do research, and this is the outcome of the last year. So I go to Muttonbird Beach, I go at the beginning of every month, I go in between sometimes too. I did collect in September and October, but somebody decided my bags of rubbish were bags of rubbish. Threw them away. So it's interesting, June last year, monster load of plastic. Beginning of June this year, I got 3 pieces. And winter has come late, so I think that's the reason why there was no plastic then. So I haven't done the statistics, but I'm pretty sure what happens in winter is significantly greater than what happens in summer. So, I mean, you've probably all noticed yourself, if you go to the beach in summer, you don't find as much plastic. Go out now, and it's just covered, it's everywhere. So I think that's a really important start to our understanding of how plastic operates on our coast. Clearly there's no point going and doing a beach clean in the middle of summer. It's much better off to go in winter, maybe a day or so after a decent storm, and then you have the biggest impact. The best place to go is the eastern end of the bays, because the plastic tends to wash along the bay and wind up in the eastern corner. So that's the best way of making the most efficient use of your time, is to go and pick on the eastern ends. They're usually the hardest place to get to as well. And then, so it's been interesting actually this year. So I went out in the beginning of April, and do you remember that storm we had on the Friday of Easter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I went out on Saturday, and I picked up twice as much plastic. I went out a week later after we'd had Easterlies, and it was pretty much all gone again. So it's like winter was trying to happen, but it didn't really happen, and the plastic went away again. But I think winter's here now. So I sort by colour and size, and I also sort by density. So I use a density series using methylated spirits and water. Meths has a specific gravity of 0.78. Those weird things I get to know in society. So I mix up meths and water to make that density series. And I do that, it doesn't tell me what the plastic is, but it does reduce the types of plastic it could be. So for example, polyvinyl chloride sinks in water. So that's greater than 1. I don't get a lot of that, but I obviously did in April this year. I don't know why. There is a group of plastic that's more dense than water.
What would that look like, that particular plastic?
So PVC's sewage pipes. But I mean, it's so hard to tell. You get fragments, and they, who knows? So 0.95 to 1. High density polyethylene fits in that category. And of course, milk bottles are high density polyethylene. So that's number 2 on the scale. But one of the things that we should be doing is using the plastic that we've produced. So this is, there's about 9 2-litre milk bottles in there and a black Tresemme shampoo bottle. I made that at home. So we could be making clipboards, what are the other things we can think of? Chopping boards. You know, if I can do that, I'm not very artistic. That was what I was trying to make pretty, but the bottom is really nice. So you have a feel of that. So, so that's the blue category. Could be high density polyethylene. We have a lot of products that come in that type of plastic. The rather dirty yellow is 0.9 to 0.95. That's low density polyethylene, fits in that category, and a lot of chemical bottles are made of that product. So I know we get a lot of that. The grey 0.85 to 0.9 is almost exclusively one type of nurdle. So I haven't had it tested yet, but it's probably something like polypropylene, which we make ropes from. But when I get it, I get quite a lot of it, and it's a very particular type of nurdle. So this is, the other thing is that the plastic, the density of the plastic will tell us whether it's going to float or sink. So polypropylene ropes and things will float, same as polyethylene bags. EPS is expanded polystyrene, so that's beanbag beads and foam. So that'll all float, and then we get down to other polystyrene that's solid. Fishing net, cigarette butts. So we often don't see as many cigarette butts as we should, because as soon as they're saturated, they'll roll off down the bottom of the ocean. Polyester, soft drink bottles. I always ask the school kids to do a self-audit. I didn't do that, did I? This is a good moment to do that. So I'd like everyone to just think about what it is they're wearing and how much of what they're wearing is synthetic or natural fibres. So have a look on the tags. See what we've got. Or are you all wearing wool and cotton? So not as much, not as many synthetic fibres as elsewhere. Bamboo or wool, so that's really good. The children, the schools that I've been to, they're all a little bit horrified when they find out that their uniforms are polyester, and it's all going to end up in the ocean and sink, or could end up in the ocean and sink. So this is sort of how it all breaks down, or the types of plastic we have. This was produced by a master's student I had. So he worked on Tor Bay, Williams Bay and Boulogne Bay. He looked at the east and west end of each beach and the middle. And when he lumped all of his data together, this is sort of what he found. So we've got the 4 categories that he's photographed there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Size class 1 is less than 2 mil. And then 2 to 6 mil, 6 to 12, 12 to 25, 25 to 50 and greater than 50. So what this is telling us is we've got a monster load of white plastic that's between 2 and 6 mils. And if you look at that picture, you can see it's fairly well dominated by nurdles. So I think the nurdle story on our coast is really interesting because we don't make We don't use them, so we don't import them to the south coast. They have to have come from somewhere else.
So how do you collect that? Do you collect it through seawater? So you send it through the seawater?
No,
We go on the
I'm a
beach.
very weird person. I hands and knees on the beach.
Okay,
So I put down a quadrat. So the sampling I do every month, I do 26 quarter square metre quadrats.
Yep.
So it's 50 by 50 centimetres. I put it on the strand line, on the seaweed line. Hands and knees with a pair of tweezers. I don't like touching plastic from the ocean because it can be very toxic. A woman came, she frightened the life out of me the other day. I was busy picking away. She said, "Hello." She said, "There are dolphins in the surf." 50 metres away from me, there's 4 dolphins following me. I'm completely oblivious to that. So the plastics we find at Muttonburg are really dominated by those small white pieces. And this is the process that I think drives the summer and winter difference. Ekman transport. So that picture on the left is basically taken straight out of a university textbook. So we get wind blowing across the surface of the ocean, and the surface water actually moves 45 degrees to the left of the direction of the wind. And it's because of the Coriolis effect. And the Coriolis effect is the force that makes water go down drains this way or that way. In the northern hemisphere, it's 45 degrees to the right. So during a southwesterly, we've got the southwesterly coming in, 45 degrees to the left is directly onshore. So that's what's pushing it on during winter. But then when we get an easterly, 45 degrees is taking the surface water offshore. And this is in fact what causes the problem for the mutton birds. So the mutton birds get mixed up as bycatch in the pilchard fishery in April, May. And it's because we've got easterlies. It's pushing that surface water offshore. And what we get is a little bit of upwelling. So cold, nutrient-rich water comes in to replace the water that's being pushed offshore. And it's productive. So that's why the pilchards are there. The fishermen and the birds are all after the pilchards. That means they all come together and then the birds get killed. But the good thing is, it means that there's less plastic there, so the ones that are picking stuff off the top of the water are actually consuming less plastic than they would if they were here during the winter. So, has anybody got any questions from that first bit?
Yeah, I'll ask a fun question. What's the nurdle?
A nurdle. So a nurdle is what's produced in the petrochemical plant as the feedstock. And then it gets produced there, then put on a ship and sent somewhere else to make your telephone, your fleece, the carpet, that bottle, the board, everything.
And you were saying they're not produced here, but are they used in Perth or somewhere in this area,
Yes,
West Australia?
they are, in fact. Have you all heard about the Durban spill? So on October 10, 2017, there was a freak storm in Durban Harbour. 5 ships lost their moorings, 4 containers fell in the ocean, 2 containers were full of nurdles, so the little plastic pellets. So it was 2.25 billion nurdles, or 42 tonnes. So that fell in the harbour in Durban. And of course, ports haven't yet decided to do plastic control. You know, they can control an oil spill, but this is a whole new product to deal with. So those, they've washed up on the shores of St Helena last year. So about 6 months after they spilt. St Helena beaches are black, the nurdles are white, so they stood out. But they're also likely to be heading to our coast. Actually, I'm going to get onto that in a second, so I'll stop there. I'll tell you a bit more about nurdles.
Harriet, here's a small question. I'm just thinking about the source of nothing 30 years as far as the
the forecast. The source of that, you mentioned the Lewin current. Is it coming down the west coast, or are we talking about stuff coming from the South Atlantic around the Cape of Good Hope and across?
Okay, so, all right, the real answer is we don't know for sure, because we haven't, there's been one study done from Perth, but she didn't go into the Lewin current. So we don't know how much is coming down the Lewin current. But you can imagine stuff's coming out of Southeast Asia, and then it travels west past India. So and the Bay of Bengal is pretty bad. And then it travels down the east coast of Africa, and then it can come across. So the debris from that plane, for example, is probably caught up in whatever patch we've got. But it's likely to possible to funnel across the Indian Ocean and along the coast. So that's probably the route it takes. But we need to know more. We don't have enough data. So I'm just going to get on to the Durban nurdle thing. So in panel B are the nurdles. I don't use biological terms. These are our local species, and these are Durban nurdles. So they're almost an invasive species. But the thing about the Durban nurdles, because we know when they were spilt, who spilt them, who the manufacturer is, who the shipping line is, there's a little bit of accountability to be chased down with that. So that's what I want people to look for as well. Look for nurdles, and then we'll see if we can find Durban nurdles. So Gary Muir, last year I did Nurdle in November, where people went out and started collecting. And does anybody know Fred Pearce? Yeah, so that's when Fred started collecting, and he's actually been out collecting all the time. So we need to see when and if the Durban nurdles wash up in big quantities. So here's the spill. There's the ship in some distress. That's them picking the container up out of the ocean. These are the small bags of nurdles. So they're low density polyethylene and high density polyethylene. They were going to Perth. That closes up the loop on the circle that was asked. So they were going to Perth. So we kind of can't judge them either, because we were going to consume that plastic if it had got here.
They're coming to Perth, just in a different way.
Hang on. Sorry?
So they may get here yet.
They might get here yet, but they're going to be potentially toxic now.
How do they gain toxicity when they travel through the ocean more than before?
So the word is adsorb, not absorb. That's when water gets sucked into something. So adsorb means it's attracting molecules of things like DDT and mercury to the surface of the nurdle. And there's an estimate done by Jennifer Lavers that a piece of plastic could in fact be 100,000 times more toxic than the seawater around it. So when I'm out collecting with kids, they use tongs and gloves. I use tweezers. When I pick up, I don't touch them anymore. So I encourage you guys to go out and collect them for me. So this is the nurdles turning up on St Helena. So that's 6 months after they were spilled. And easy to find on St Helena beaches, because the beaches are black. So we're going to have to work a little bit harder than that. And of course, a lot of our coast is remote. So if you do go to the beach, it'd be great if you could spend some time collecting. So the method that I use is I make a 1 square metre quadrat using a string. So just measure a metre, tie a knot, another metre, tie a knot, and then all the way around. Throw it down on the ground where you can see lots of nurdles, bits of plastic, and then just pick them all up with a pair of tweezers, location, date, etc. So I've got some sheets out the front so that you can put your email address on, and I'll actually send you the method sheet if you'd like to participate. So I concentrate in November, but you can do it any time you like. And if you happen to be down the beach and you see the beach covered in them, that's gold. So if we can say, well, look, there's a monster load of them, and Let's go on one more slide. So I have 8 nurdles that were sent to me from Durban. So they're my reference nurdles. And I took them to Perth, and I went and used the Raman spectral microscopy. So it's a microscope with a laser beam in it. And I got out this spectrum, which is the spectrum you'd expect for low density polyethylene. And then Gary Muir last year in November, so we had nurdling November, he found another 8 or 9 nurdles that look like Durban nurdles. And ignore what's to the left, that's just noise, and ignore the fact that it's a little bit higher because it's been in the ocean for however many years. But the peaks are all in exactly the same place. And it's these small peaks on the shoulders that are the real telltales.
That's on DNA.
A bit like DNA, yeah. So, the nurdles that Gary found look like Durban nurdles. They smell like Durban nurdles. But we really need a monster load of them to say that yes, this is the spill in Durban. And because our beaches are remote, when people like you guys go to the beach, if you have a look and can sample, that's the best way for us to gather evidence that we need to get someone in to pay for the cleanup. So there's the information, so I'll send you the details. So the last bit of this presentation is about frivolous, cryptic and dumb. So this is my creation. It's a step on from single-use plastic. So frivolous plastic is that sort of plastic that doesn't really have any value or function. And it really boils down to toys and vanity. So the Little Shop collection, I'm sure none of you got involved with that. I have one. Which I got so that I could show it to people and nobody had to buy them. The kids are really interesting with this. They all go, oh! And then they go, ooh, when they kind of figure out what you're trying to get at, and they realise that there's no value in this, so why should we have it? I actually spent a lot of my younger years sailing around the world, but yachts are toys. They're just really expensive toys for grown-ups. And in this instance, all these toys have been wrecked by a hurricane, so they're now broken toys, and they're made of plastic. So it is frivolous. And there's all sorts of other toys that we have which are frivolous. So that's frivolous. Cryptic is plastic we don't see. So in this instance, the lady on the left has got a very nice denim jacket on, and it has rhinestones around the lapel. And this is cryptic mimicry because it's plastic imitating something we value, like diamonds at the really expensive end. So we don't see it as plastic, but it is plastic. Paper clips, coated with plastic to give it colour. Glue is plastic. Well, a nylon tea bag, we all get that that's plastic, but normal tea bags have a little bit of plastic in them to make them well shut. So there's a lot of plastic around us that we need to start registering and choosing to avoid. And I really sort of started thinking about this. I went and trawled for plastic on the Swan River, and in the samples we found lots of fibres, and we found the letter A. It was 1.5 millimetre thick, and I could see little bits of jagged glue on the edges of it. So it had obviously been, written on a life jacket or a buoyancy aid, the word Australia, and it was glued on little letters. So that's the sort of thing we need to start thinking about. I see it everywhere I go now. It's ruining my life. Oh, I had to put this in because I was at the Walpole CRC yesterday talking to them. These are the yellow reflectors off road posts along the side of the road. And the DOT had actually just ripped them off and thrown them in the bush. Somebody from Walpole and pick them all up again. But you wouldn't have thought of the reflectors as being plastic.
Who's DOT?
Department of Transport. And then we have dumb. And my poster boy for dumb is with the slipper cord. And as soon as you have that thought about it being consumed in the garden and scattered around the garden, right. But this is just about thinking about it. So why don't we replace whippersnipper cord with slow release fertiliser? Have a cord that's robust enough to do the whippersnippering, and the bits that are left in the garden afterwards actually perform the function instead of being plastic. So I think a lot of this, so there's a couple of things, especially with the kids, I've been talking about. Don't buy a lot, buy quality. And when you recognise something as being plastic, then think about the alternative. Then buy quality so that it lasts a really long time. So I think I've done my dash now. So has anyone got any more questions?
I got two. One was the plastic. We saw a lot of stuff was mentioned at the end was actually plastic we see or use as an end consumer. But for example, construction is amazing what's wrapped and packed, and that's only what I see from construction. Must be similar things as well being transported in the, let's say, production process line, which we don't even see.
Yep.
That must be immense. Is there any ratio we're having there? How much actually we produce, or is produced what we even don't see?
We're still waking up to the problem, so we haven't answered all of these things. But one of the terms of construction, a little bit of plastic that archaeologists are going to have a field day, because there's going to be a little pile of plastic around where the old Hills Hoist used to be, and there's also going to be little piles of polyvinyl chloride where the plumber sawed the pipe in half and left a little pile of PVC shavings on the floor. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. Every house is going to have its little pile. What are the archaeologists going to think about that? So that's a habit for plumbers to actually capture the filings, I don't know, it's the shavings, it's not sawdust, plastic dust, and not leaving it on the ground. So there's a lot wrapping up pallets. There's so much we need to do. It's just about changing habits. Some wise person is going to make a bad load of money out of all this. Won't be me. Right, so that's another thing. With the post office has gone to those plastic bags. If you're going to post something, do it in post bags. Or you can. I saw a company in Holland. They send. The company will acquire their plastic, but they're reusable postage bags, and then they get used to sent out, and then they go back to the central place, cleaned and sent out again. So again, it's about thinking about it, and something making lots of money.
But all the magazines and things don't come in paper envelopes anymore, they come in plastic envelopes. And I've been sending mine back to Choice magazine and saying, you can do better than this, I don't want it in plastic. But they say, no, we can't do anything.
Well, we're telling you to cancel your subscription.
Yes.
And more people need to do it.
Yeah.
Is there anything where we support at an international level to set some standards with respect to food packaging, the use of plastics and manufacturing? Does Australia have a policy on it? Is there anything from a regulatory point of view?
I don't know a great deal about that side.
Okay.
But I do know there was a packaging standard. I came across it a few times, and I don't know what that stuff.
There was a thing called the Packaging Covenant some time ago, when I was working in there, 15 years ago.
I saw a brochure yesterday put out by a company that's trying to sell non-plastic containers, trying to sell it to people who need some kind of container for their product. And it's all non-plastic.
Yeah, so there are products coming. I think that's, we're on the front of an avalanche of change. One of the things we do have to be careful about is when somebody's marketing a product as biodegradable, and if it's a little bit plastic-like, it might actually mean it's biodegradable, but only in a commercial system where the temperatures are high.
That's not biodegradable.
The label is biodegradable, but it's biodegradable in a commercial system.
After it's been heated up to 1 million degrees.
I think it's about 65 degrees. But a garden compost system, I don't know, it doesn't get there much warmer.
Yeah, it doesn't usually. There's, you can, if you have a look at the little, look for a certifying logo on something that's claiming to be biodegradable. We don't want anything that says degradable because that just means it breaks down into microplastics. So some of those green eco wraps from big supermarkets are just actually degradable. And some say bags that say, oh, green bag, they just break down into little bits of plastic. But there's actually a home composting certifying standard. It's a little triangle and it's got an Australian standard number next to it that says home compost. So those rubbish bags or dog food bags you can just break down in a with moisture and a fairly low amount of heat and biological activity. But something that says compostable, there's another standard, Australian standard for that, and that it just needs a more particular environment with a higher heat, which you probably don't get in your home composting system.
In a recent copy of Double Helix, which is a child's science magazine, it shows you how to make compostable dog food bags out of corn flour. You just cook up your corn flour, put it onto a tray so that it's really, really shallow, leave it to dry for a few days, and then you glue the sides together with more cooked corn flour. There you go.
Get the grandkids into the business.
Well, people are doing
Yeah.
it.
So actually that brings me to another point. When I've been talking to the kids, I've been saying to them, I used my little dinosaur here, which I nearly stepped on. And with this I talk to them about toys and, you know, what's better to have a few toys that you cherish or a huge pile of toys. And they all say they'd much rather have a few toys that they cherish. And so then I say to them, well, okay, next time at Christmas time or for a birthday or whatever, rather than asking for toys, why not make something with your grandparents or your parents and dog food bags? Yeah. Yep.
Harriet, when you spoke at Good Beach a few weeks ago, you mentioned something about tyre dust, and I only just got a little sense of it, but it shocked me at the time, and I wonder, can you say a bit more?
Right, so there's a graphic going around that shows the breakdown of Australia's plastic in the environment, the sources of it. 19% comes from tyre dust. You know how you've got to go and change your tyres because they wear away? They leave tyre dust. 19%. So that's sort of kind of a cryptic plastic with a big impact.
I'm just wondering why so much of the plastic ends up in the sea? How is it actually kept there? Do you have any idea?
They call it leakage when it leaks out of the waste system. So we're very lucky that we have a first world waste system. So our leakage is pretty small, but you saw the rivers. There's practices elsewhere. I mean, they need some education. We need to reduce the amount of plastic we use, and in other countries where their waste management's not so good, they need to have some education. Now there are problems that people face. In a very poor country, what people often do, because they can't afford to buy a large bottle of shampoo, they go and buy the little packets, because that's all they can afford. And of course that means every shower they're creating another little packet. So how do we help third world countries get over that problem?
And the hotels.
And the hotels, they should know better. Yeah. And I went to Canada a few years ago, and the tea bags, the tea came in pots. And I was mortified. I went down to the front counter and shouted at the
One more question. You mentioned something, if you find those specific noodles there, that if you find bigger numbers of them, you can actually get someone to pay for the cleanup? Can you?
Oh, no, okay, so this is out of my league, so it's off to lawyer land, and you know, it's like an oil spill. So if the oil spill's turning up, who's responsible for it? There's a whole realm of unexplored international law around that. You know, if those Durban nurdles did wash up, who's responsible for the clean-up? Is it the port, the shipping company, the manufacturer? And these international cross-boundary plastic pollution is an issue that's going to become more and more important. And I did an ABC interview where I said that, and it caused a huge furore in South Africa. It was on the front page of one of the newspapers.
Wow.
And we need to do that.
As a result of that, have they started to look at, you know, with the oil, they've got ways now to deal with it when it happens. Have they started to look at ways to deal with it?
So I think the South Africans did really well. They had picked up a third of the spill in a couple of weeks, but the rest kind of got away from them. But they've still got plastic, it gets buried, and then it gets resuspended. So every time they clean up a bit more, and then they clean up a bit more. But a certain percentage has got free.
Right, but put on an infrastructure to capture that now, it's going to happen again.
I think all the ports around the world have sort of got,
Future learnings.
we need to practice our oil spill, but we also need to practice our nurdle spill. But the containers still fall off ships. They fall off ships at an alarming rate. Ships sink at an alarming rate. Do you want to know about the...
more of these forms if you want people to know.
Do you want to know about the rubber ducky spill? No. So I think it was 1992, there was a container of rubber duckies fell off a ship in the Pacific. And there's people that base their whole careers on tracking the rubber duckies because they actually went up and they got stuck in the ice pack in the Arctic. And they've actually gone all the way through the ice pack and come out into the Atlantic. And there's been loads of stuff spilled in the Pacific, and I read a report about flip-flops. So they go towards the coast of the United States, and then there's a current that splits, and the left thumbs go like because of, you know, the way that they're shaped. Questions? Oh, rayon. Okay, so I think rayon sinks, I know that. I never quite remember. It's a semi-synthetic. So it starts off as organic, and then it goes through a really extensive process. But then I know cellophane used to be made with cellulose, but that process has been entirely synthetic since the beginning of the 90s.
You're right, very much. So, what now do you do with all these cellophane packaging that they change the plastic for?
Don't use any new stuff. So my theory is that if you've got something that's synthetic, you should use it and use it and use it and make it earn its keep. And try not to replace it with more synthetic stuff. I try quite hard to buy natural fibres. I think bamboo probably tops the list because it grows very quickly and I don't think it needs a lot of water. Quite happy to be corrected. Hemp is good. It doesn't need as much water as cotton. But then we've also just got to start thinking about the whole process, because the process of taking some of those materials into fabric is just as nasty.
Harriet, when you were talking about the sampling on the beach, I suppose we've got into the habit recently, you know, being school, walking along and simple bits of plastic, and you pick it up, put it in your pocket, take it home, put it in, you know, in the appropriate rubbish arrangement. I'm just thinking, given the comments you made about the toxicity of those remnant bits of plastic, and whether one should go with some tongs next time,
Yep,
or...
go with some tongs.
Yeah, okay.
Tongs and tweezers. And the depot officer that does a lot of collecting, he actually has a dustpan and brush.
So in that same,
So with the sampling I do, I look at what colours, the length and the density. And then I'll look at, so I'll have a quantitative understanding of the abundance of plastic, and Fred Pearce is doing his equivalent. Wow Eco Tours, every day he gets his high-paying tourists to pick up plastic every day. And he puts, every day goes in a different envelope, and the kids at the primary school actually sort it and count it. And I then want to get a university student to go through it again and take it to the next level. So it's about making a really good baseline understanding of how much plastic we have now. And then in 5 years' time, hopefully I'm still doing it, if it hasn't gone up, it'd be really nice to say, oh, we've still got the same amount as we had 5 years ago. But the expectation is that we'll probably have a bit more. Well, I have to say, loads of people go to Muttonbird Beach now, collect plastic, and I'm getting a slightly wrong answer because it's well, no, there's schools that do it. Schools don't collect it well enough, but it is cleaning the beach up all the time. So if you collect using the 1 square metre quadrat, if you want to send them to me, the method sheet I've got has a little card for you to write on what it was. Just stick that in the envelope, and if you drop it off at uni on Stirling Terrace, it's fantastic. And then I'll sort through them, looking for Durban medals.
Sometimes I feel like you're picking it up and putting it back into the rubbish will then actually go back there. You know, like I'm just not having the trust in our recycling and rubbish collection.
Our rubbish collection is first world, so it's
there's nothing better at the moment. Yeah.
So we just don't behave the same way, of course. And we know that the majority of what's on our beach doesn't come from us. So it's not us putting it there, it's coming from everybody else.
All the stuff on Albany Highway comes from us.
Yeah, everything on Albany Highway comes from us. Last time I drove the whole way up there, so there is so much.
You need to go down the Mazzaroni beach, it's so much rubbish down there.
So, if if you do come across a day when you've just got, it's just everywhere, just shove it into a bag and send it to me. And the sooner I know about a really big dump of plastic, I'll get out there and sample it as well.
Specific to Smurfs or every sort of plastic? Or you want whatever shape?
Well, if you see a bunch of nurdles, that's good enough. I want to get out and sample that.
So you don't want the trailer full?
The which?
You don't want the trailer full?
No, just a bag saying this was, 30 metres long, and here's a sample.
You don't talk about rubbish on the road.
No.
And on the beach.
The stuff on the Albany Highway, it's been running around in my brain. I think I'm going to have a chat with Keep Australia Beautiful and see if they can run a program where schools going on camp, on the way to the camp and back from the camp, might adopt a kilometre and get the kids to pick up a kilometre's worth. Because I think it's that generation that needs to, pin the idea together that if you throw it out the window, it stays by the side of the road.
I'm just thinking about changing habits and people who don't recycle, and it's their portion, I'm particularly saying Perth and cities. The common myth, I suppose, is that plastics are inert, and they go to landfill and they just sit there, and they just sit there in the land. But if that toxicity accumulation is happening in the landfill, we're actually making a much, much bigger problem. Is that a fair conclusion or not?
Well, I think eventually we're going to end up mining our landfill to get some of the plastic back again. So if you're talking to people about the toxicity of plastic, I've read quite a few papers about the things that medical researchers are looking at with the relationship between plastic and the human body. And all of them, almost without fail, are looking at human reproduction. And we all know that men's sperm count has declined by 50%. I reckon in the next 5 years, the medical researchers are going to start making claims that plastic is affecting our reproductive health. We know that phthalates and bisphenols mimic estrogen, and we know that they mess with the endocrine system. And when you read BPA free, they've replaced it with BPC or BPF. And the only difference is we know a little bit less about BPA. So glass, China, not plastic. Any other questions? Yep.
How easy is it to make the plastic chopping board out of plastic bottles?
That black and white board, very easy.
Yeah, okay.
Jump on the internet. There's this 15-year-old kid in England who's using his mum's oven. I don't think that's a good idea. Do it in the garage. He's making gings.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Illegal, I think. But he uses caps and he gets blue ones and green ones and he melts them together and he twists them up and then. So you melt them at 175 degrees. You can do it in an oven dish. You can either be new and shiny and it'll pop out, or use baking paper. And then you
melt the plastic.
Melt the plastic at 175. Then when you pull it out of the oven, you put down some more baking paper and a board over the top, and then use some clamps. And you cool it, and you keep adding the pressure, because it shrinks, and then once it's cold, you pull it out and you've got a board. There's jump online. Just put it, melt HDPE, high density
Will
board.
there be some release of toxic gas?
Yeah.
Yes, so outside in the garage.
Yeah.
I suggest
Toxic chopping board?
well, it's HDPE, milk comes out.
Actually, bag, handbag, opening recently, that's when the plastic bottles, and it's beautiful, it's all colours.
So again, there's a free resource to make things. There's a beautiful video, he ends up having this beautiful black and white mallet, and he uses it for chiselling. So he got an old can and a hot air gun, and he cut up, there was a milk bottle, he used quite a few of them. It was white on the outside and black on the inside, and he chopped it up into little pieces, and then he fed it into this can using an industrial hot air blower, and it melted and melted and melted, and then he put a plug in the top and clamped that down. And then he cut away the can, and he ended up with a cylinder, which he then put on the lathe, and he just lathes it like a piece of wood, put a wooden handle on, and it's beautiful. Just don't do it inside in the house.